The road to Black Ridge Forest disappeared from my GPS before the trees did. One moment, I was following a thin gray line on the screen. The next, it simply ended, like the map refused to admit the place ahead existed. No warning. No rerouting. Just blank green terrain. I should have turned back. But the rain had started, heavy and sudden, and the forest road behind me had already turned into mud. My headlights were the only source of light in the growing darkness, slicing through sheets of water and fog that seemed to rise from the ground itself. That's when I saw it. A faint yellow glow between the trees. At first, I thought it was another car. Then a cabin. But as I got closer, the shape grew larger. Wider. A building. An old wooden hotel, sitting alone in the middle of the forest like it had been forgotten by time. A flickering sign hung above the entrance. Pine Hollow Hotel. Half the letters were burned out. I parked without thinking. The storm gave me no choice. The moment I stepped out, I noticed the silence. No insects. No wind through leaves. Just rain hitting wood and metal in a steady rhythm. The front door creaked when I pushed it open. Inside, a dim lobby greeted me. Yellow lights buzzed weakly overhead. The air smelled stale, like old carpet and wet wood. A man stood behind the counter. I didn't hear him walk in. He was just there. Tall. Thin. Pale skin that almost looked gray in the light. His eyes seemed too dark, too still. "You need a room," he said. Not a question. A statement. His voice sounded dry, like it hadn't been used in a long time. I nodded. He slid a key across the counter. Room 12. No paperwork. No questions. No price. Just the key. As I turned to head upstairs, I noticed something strange near the entrance window. Outside, about 30 feet from the hotel, there was a small tent. Old. Torn at the edges. Like someone had been living there for a long time. Watching the hotel. I turned back to ask the man about it. But the counter was empty. No sound of footsteps. No door closing. He was simply gone. And for the first time since arriving, I realized I hadn't seen a single other car. Or heard a single other voice. This hotel, in the middle of nowhere, wasn't empty. But it wasn't full either. The staircase groaned under my weight as I climbed toward the second floor. Every step echoed louder than it should have, like the hotel was hollow inside. The hallway above was dimly lit by weak yellow bulbs spaced too far apart, leaving long sections in shadow. The carpet felt damp beneath my shoes. Room numbers were nailed onto the doors with crooked screws. I stopped at 12. The key felt unusually cold in my hand. I slid it into the lock and turned it slowly. The door opened without resistance. And I immediately knew something was wrong. The air inside the room felt disturbed. Not stale like the lobby. Moved. Recently. The bed sheets were slightly wrinkled, like someone had sat there. The chair near the window was not pushed in. The bathroom light was on. I hadn't touched anything yet. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded small. The bathroom light flickered. I stepped inside carefully. The sink was wet. Drops of water still clung to the porcelain. The mirror was fogged slightly at the edges, as if someone had washed their hands moments ago. I backed out slowly. My heart started beating harder. Maybe the room was already rented. Maybe the man downstairs made a mistake. I hurried back into the hallway. "Excuse me." I called down the stairs. No answer. Only silence. As I turned to go back inside, something near the window caught my eye. The curtains were slightly parted. I didn't remember touching them. I walked over and looked outside. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. The forest stood dark and thick beyond the clearing. And there, in the faint light from the hotel windows, I saw the tent again. But now, I could see something else. A shape inside it. Not moving. Not shifting. Just sitting upright. Facing the hotel. Facing my room. Watching. A chill crawled up my spine. I stepped back from the window quickly and shut the curtains fully. My hands were shaking. That's when I heard it. A slow sound behind me. Fabric shifting. I turned around sharply. The bed. The blanket had slightly dipped in the middle. As if someone had just pressed their hand into it. I stared at it, unable to breathe. Then the bathroom light turned off by itself. Click. The room went darker. And I realized something terrifying. I had never seen the man from the lobby go upstairs. I had never heard footsteps. Never heard doors open or close. But someone had been inside this room before me. Very recently. And they hadn't left through the door. I didn't want to stay inside room 12 anymore. Every part of me screamed to leave, but the storm outside had grown louder again. Rain hammered against the windows, and wind howled through the trees like something alive out there. I stepped back into the hallway. The door clicked shut behind me with a sound that felt too final. The corridor looked longer than before. I was sure of it. When I first walked up, room 12 had been near the staircase. Just a few steps away. Now, the stairs were nowhere in sight. Only a stretch of dim hallway disappearing into shadows. I stood still, trying to remember. Had I turned the wrong way? No. The stairs should have been to my left. But when I looked left, more hallway. Same weak lights. Same doors. My breathing became shallow. This didn't make sense. I started walking. My footsteps echoed strangely, like the floor beneath me was hollow. The air smelled heavier here. Damp wood and something older, something rotten beneath the surface. Room 16. How big was this place? I hadn't seen this many doors from outside. Then I noticed something else. Every door handle looked scratched. Deep marks around the metal. As if someone had tried to force their way out from inside. I stopped walking. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. And then I heard another sound. A door opening. Somewhere behind me. Slow. Careful. I turned around quickly. The hallway behind me was empty. But one of the doors stood slightly open now. Room 15. I was sure it had been closed before. A thin line of darkness showed through the gap. I stared at it, frozen. Then, from inside that room, I heard breathing. Not loud. But steady. Human. I backed away slowly. And that's when I realized something worse. The numbers on the doors ahead of me were repeating. Then again. Like I was walking in a loop. Trapped in the same section of hallway. My chest tightened. I turned and ran. I didn't care which direction anymore. I just ran. The lights above me flickered as I passed. Doors blurred by. My shoe slipped slightly on the damp carpet. Then suddenly, I hit something hard. A wall. I stumbled back, confused. In front of me was the staircase. Exactly where it had been when I first came up. As if I had never left. I grabbed the railing, trying to steady myself. And that's when I noticed it. At the far end of the hallway behind me. Room 15's door was now fully open. And inside the darkness, someone was standing there. Watching me. The stairs felt closer than before as I gripped the railing and forced myself downward without looking back toward the open doorway at the end of the hall. I could feel eyes on my back even though I heard no footsteps following me. The air grew warmer with each step down, thick and hard to breathe. When I reached the lobby, the lights were dimmer than before. The buzzing sound overhead had grown louder. The front desk was empty again. The key to room 12 was still in my hand, digging into my palm. I placed it on the counter and waited. No one came out from any door. I walked toward the entrance window and looked outside. The rain had almost stopped, leaving mist floating between the trees. The tent was still there. But now I could see its zipper slowly moving down from the inside. I froze, unable to blink. The fabric parted just enough to reveal a face. It looked wrong, sunken, and pale, like skin stretched over bone. Eyes dark and unblinking stared directly at me. I stumbled back from the window. A soft sound came from behind the counter. I turned quickly. The man from earlier was standing there again. I had not heard him approach. "You should not look outside," he said calmly. His lips barely moved when he spoke. I noticed mud on his shoes. Dark wet mud like the ground around the tent. My stomach tightened. "You were outside," I whispered. He tilted his head slowly. "Everyone who comes here looks outside," he replied. "They always think the danger is far away." He smiled slightly. I backed toward the door. My hand reached for the handle. It would not move. The lock felt stuck, jammed tight. When I looked back at him, he was closer than before. I had not seen him walk. I could smell damp earth on him. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Room 12 was not for you. It was for the last guest." He never checked out. I felt my knees weaken. Outside, the tent collapsed suddenly as if something had stepped out of it. The windows rattled softly from no wind. I heard slow footsteps above us on the ceiling. My room was upstairs. He whispered, "Listen carefully now. They are waking up again tonight. Inside this hotel." The footsteps above us stopped as suddenly as they had begun. The silence that followed felt heavier than the noise. I stared at the man behind the counter, trying to understand what he meant. His face showed no emotion, only a strange stillness that made it hard to look at him for too long. "What do you mean, waking up?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned and walked toward a narrow hallway behind the desk. I hadn't noticed it before. A small wooden door sat at the end with a faded sign above it that read, "Storage." He stopped in front of it. Then he looked back at me. "You should see," he said quietly. Every instinct told me not to follow him. But something worse pulled me forward. A need to understand what this place really was. The closer I got to the door, the stronger the smell became. At first, I thought it was mold. Then damp wood. Then something else. Sweet. Rotten. Heavy. My stomach tightened. He opened the door slowly. The smell hit me fully now, thick and choking. I covered my nose, fighting the urge to gag. The room inside was dark except for a single hanging bulb swinging gently from the ceiling. Its yellow light revealed shelves along the walls filled with old suitcases, broken lamps, torn bedding. And in the center of the floor, something large, covered with a stained white sheet. I couldn't move. The man stepped aside, allowing me to see clearly. "Last guest," he said. My hands trembled as I reached for the edge of the sheet. I didn't want to lift it. But I did. The face underneath was gray, shriveled, almost mummified. The skin clung tightly to the skull. The mouth was slightly open as if frozen mid-breath. But the worst part. I recognized him. It was the man I had seen in the tent outside. The same hollow eyes. The same sunken cheeks. I stumbled back in horror. "That's impossible," I whispered. "He was outside just now." The man behind the counter nodded slowly. "He never leaves," he said. I looked back at the body. Then I noticed something that made my blood turn cold. The clothes on the corpse were damp with fresh mud. Still wet. like he had been walking in the rain moments ago. Behind me, I heard a soft creak from the lobby. The front door opening by itself. The front door creaked wider. Cold air slid into the lobby, carrying the smell of rain and forest soil with it. I turned slowly toward the sound, my heart thudding so hard it felt painful. The man behind the counter didn't move. He simply watched the doorway. Then I saw them. Footprints. Wet. Fresh. Appearing one by one across the wooden floor. No person. No shadow. Just the marks forming as if invisible feet were stepping inside. Water dripped from each print, leaving small dark patches that spread into the cracks of the wood. I couldn't breathe. The prints moved past the counter. Past me. Heading toward the staircase. I turned to the man, but his expression hadn't changed. "They always come back inside," he said quietly. My eyes followed the trail upward. Step by step, the wet marks climbed the stairs, vanishing into the dim second-floor hallway. I remembered the body in the storage room. Still damp with mud. Still lying there. My head spun. "That can't be him," I said. "He's dead." The man nodded slightly. "Yes." A loud thud came from above us. Like a door slamming shut. Then another. And another. One by one, the room doors upstairs began closing on their own. Boom. 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 Each slam echoed through the hotel like a gunshot. I covered my ears. "This happens every night," he continued calmly. "They go back to their rooms." "Who?" I whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped around the counter and walked toward the stairs. I didn't want to follow. But I did. The trail of wet footprints was still visible on the steps. I placed my feet carefully beside them as we climbed. At the top, the hallway lights flickered again. Every door was now shut. Except one. Room 12. The door stood wide open. And inside, I could hear breathing. Slow. Heavy. Wet. Like lungs filled with water. I felt my stomach twist. The man stopped beside me. "They remember where they stayed," he said softly. And then the breathing stopped. We stood outside room 12 without moving. The air in the hallway felt thicker than before, hard to pull into my lungs. The faint smell of damp earth had followed us upstairs, mixing with something older and sour. The man turned away from the doorway and walked back toward the staircase. "Come," he said. I hesitated, staring into the dark room. I expected something to step out at any second. But nothing moved. No sound came from inside now. I followed him down to the lobby again. He reached beneath the counter and pulled out a large, leather-bound book. The cover was cracked with age, edges curled and darkened. He placed it in front of me. "Guest register," he said. I opened it slowly. The pages were yellow and brittle. Names filled every line in faded ink. Dates written beside them. I scanned the first page. Dozens of names. Some crossed out. Some circled. Some smeared, like the ink had been dragged by water. I flipped forward. Each page filled with people who had stayed here. And then I saw something that made my hands shake. Every single name had a small note beside it. Room 12. All of them. I flipped faster through the pages. Every guest. Every year. Room 12. No other room numbers written anywhere. My throat tightened. "This hotel only has one room," the man said quietly. "That's not true," I whispered. "I saw the hallway. I saw the doors." He shook his head slowly. "They see what they expect to see." I flipped to the last page. The ink looked newer here. The last entry was written shakily. Just one name. Today's date. My name. I stared at it, unable to speak. "I never wrote that," I said. He nodded. "You didn't have to." The page below it was blank. Waiting. I heard a faint sound upstairs again. A door opening. Then soft footsteps in the hallway. More than one. I looked toward the stairs. "How many people are here?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned the book toward me and pointed at the very first page. At the top, above the names, written in old ink were 3 words. "Never leave room 12. And suddenly I understood. Nobody who stayed here ever checked out. They just stayed. Somewhere in the hotel. Forever. Upstairs, footsteps began moving toward the staircase. Coming down. The footsteps on the stairs were slow. Not rushed. Not heavy. Just steady, like several people calmly walking down together. I backed away from the staircase until my shoulders touched the entrance door. My hand searched for the handle again. Still stuck. Still refusing to move. The man behind the counter didn't look frightened. He looked tired. Like this had happened too many times before. "They don't like when guests learn the truth," he said softly. Shapes began to appear at the top of the stairs. Not clear figures. More like silhouettes where light should have been. Shadows moving against shadows. I couldn't make out faces, but I could feel their attention turning toward me. My chest felt tight. "I need to leave," I said. He nodded toward the side of the lobby. "There is another door." I hadn't noticed it before. A narrow wooden door beside the old coat rack. It blended into the wall so well it almost looked decorative. I rushed to it and pulled it open. Cold night air hit my face instantly. The forest. Dark. Wet. Silent. I stepped outside without thinking. Behind me, I heard the footsteps reach the bottom of the stairs. I didn't turn around. I ran. Branches scratched against my arms as I pushed through the trees. The ground was uneven, muddy from the rain. My breathing turned ragged as I moved deeper into the forest, away from the faint yellow glow of the hotel lights. After what felt like minutes, I stopped. The hotel was no longer visible through the trees. Only darkness surrounded me. That's when I noticed something ahead. A small clearing. And in the center of it, the tent. The same torn tent I had seen from my window. My stomach dropped. I slowly approached it. The zipper was half open. Inside, there were old blankets, food wrappers, bottles of water. And something else. A stack of papers. I picked them up with shaking hands. They were printed maps. Satellite images of the forest. Each one circled in red ink. The exact location of the Pine Hollow Hotel. Except, on the maps, there was nothing there. No building. No road. Just trees. I felt cold all over. Behind me, I heard a voice. Very close. Calm. Dry. "You should not have left room 12. I turned slowly. The man from the counter was standing between the trees. And he wasn't alone. I couldn't run. My legs felt locked in place as the man stood between the trees, watching me with the same expressionless face. Around him, shapes moved in the darkness. Not walking. Not stepping. Just shifting closer without sound. "You left the room," he said quietly. His voice carried easily through the still forest air. Behind me, the tent rustled slightly, though there was no wind. I felt trapped between it and whatever stood in front of me. "I just wanted to leave," I whispered. He tilted his head. "No one leaves," he replied. The shapes behind him seemed taller now, stretching unnaturally between the trees. I could feel their attention pressing against me like weight on my chest. I stumbled backward and tripped over the edge of the tent, falling hard onto the wet ground. My head struck something, and bright pain exploded behind my eyes. The last thing I saw before everything went black was the faint yellow glow of the hotel lights appearing between the trees again. Closer than before. Much closer. I woke up to voices. Real voices. Sharp. Urgent. Sir? Can you hear me? I opened my eyes slowly. Morning sunlight filtered through tree branches above me. The forest looked normal now. Birds chirped somewhere nearby. The air smelled fresh. Two police officers stood over me. I was lying beside a torn tent. My head throbbed. What happened? I croaked. They exchanged a look. You were reported missing yesterday, one of them said. Your car was found on the forest road. We followed tracks and found you here. I pushed myself up slowly. My eyes scanned the clearing. There was no hotel. No building. No road. Just trees. Where is it? I asked weakly. Where is what? The Pine Hollow Hotel. They frowned. There's nothing like that in this forest. I looked toward the tent. Someone was living here, I said. The officers went quiet. Then one of them spoke carefully. We did find something. They led me a few steps away. And I felt my stomach drop. A body lay covered with a sheet. The smell hit me first. Sweet. Rotten. Heavy. They lifted the sheet slightly. The face underneath was gray and shriveled. Sunken eyes. Mud on the clothes. I recognized him instantly. The man from behind the counter. The officer looked at me seriously. We believe he's been dead for several weeks. My vision blurred. Because I knew that wasn't possible. I had spoken to him last night. Inside a hotel that didn't exist.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to Midnight Case File, like the video, and share it with others because more mysteries await you.